revealed. As the night guard at a cursed amusement park, I discovered sinister rules that haunt me. Tim shivered as he stepped onto the cracked pavement of Whispering Pines Amusement Park, the eerie quiet of Maplewood settling around him like a heavy fog. Desperate to provide for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, he took a job that most would run from. The moon hung high, casting ghostly shadows among rusting rides and faded signs that whispered of joy long past. The air was thick, oppressive, and prickly with tension, as if the park itself was alive, waiting for him to cross a line he didn't know existed. As he wandered near the carousel, he noticed strange, glowing symbols etched into the wood. They pulsated as if they were breathing, and instinct told him to turn back. Was that laughter he heard? Faint echoes reached out, tugging at his heart, reminding him of Lily's bright smile. Shaking his head, he tried to focus. He was here to make money, not to entertain ghosts. But the park held a grip on his mind, and an unsettling feeling prickled at his senses. Just a backdrop to old rides, he thought. Just a job. Yet as the moon climbed higher, casting deeper shadows, he felt eyes watching. What was it about this place? Late-night whispers rode the breeze, calling his name, as if the spirits of children lost in the park were searching for a father. Tim's first break came at a nearby cafe, where an old-timer shared chilling stories. Missing kids, he warned, his voice trembling. Spirits still looking for their way home. Whispering Pines, cursed, they say. Tim couldn't shake the weight of his words. The police reports declared the park safe as long as you stay away. But what did they know? As the tales rolled off the man's tongue, dread sank into Tim's chest. So it's true? Tim asked, but the old man only nodded solemnly. Keeping you on your toes, he muttered, eyes darting back to the park. Tim hesitated. Ignoring the warnings, he returned to the darkness, feeling the park draw him in further. Night after night, the symbols glowed brighter, pulsing dread, as if with every beat of his heart, they demanded something from him he couldn't understand. The swing sets creaked, and the lights flickered ominously. He felt the shadows swirl, almost mocking him, teasing him with promises that danced just out of reach. One night, everything spiraled. Lily, curious, crossed the park's threshold, laughter spilling from her lips. It was sweet, innocent, a song filled with joy in a place rife with pain. Panic shot through Tim as he raced after her. The whispers intensified, transforming into frantic screeches, twisting with a haunting, familiar laughter that chilled him to the bone. The park, alive with darkness, demanded something else now. Lily, come back, he shouted, but her giggles echoed, weaving into the clamorous chorus. He darted towards her, his heart pounding, feeling a tight grip of dread close around his throat. What had he done? Tim couldn't forget the old man's warnings. The park's roots were deep, twisted, and connected to the lost. He had thought he was merely a night guard, reporting only to the empty echoes of a past long gone. But as shadows wrapped around them, it became clear that to save Lily, he would need to confront the sinister rules. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tim's breath came in ragged gasps as shadows danced around him. The park awakened like a beast, ready to claim its due. He felt the shadows pressing in, closing around them as he wrestled with his desperation. Save Lily or satisfy the haunting spirits who demanded their price. The line between reality and the park's dark history blurred, threatening to consume them both. As the darkness closed in, Tim realized time was running out, and he was trapped with a choice that could decide their very fates, leaving him haunted by a terrifying question. Who would he become when the morning light broke? Lily vanished into the gloom, her laughter spiraling high above the sinister, whispering shadows. Panic surged through Tim's veins, cold and relentless, As he pressed on, heart racing, he fought against the tightening grasp of the places where darkness pooled, wondering if he could outrun the malevolence lurking just beyond sight. "Lily!" he yelled again, desperation clawing his throat. The park felt like a living beast. Every flicker of light seemed to pulse with a heartbeat synchronized to his terror. Ghostly shadows slid between the rides, flitting away just as he caught glimpses of movement. Each step toward her felt both like an act of bravery and a step into the inevitable. The symbols carved in would seem to beckon him further, urging him to enter their dark realm. He shot toward the old Ferris wheel, a towering monolith of rust and decay. It creaked eerily, almost as if the ghosts of children swayed in the neglected compartments, memories trapped in intertwining metal. He peered up, scanning the heights, desperate to find his daughter. The vacant seats swayed slightly, whispering secrets he couldn't grasp. This was a place of lost souls, and the air thrummed with their anguish. Panic gnawed at him as he recalled the stories, the missing children, the laughter that echoed for eternity. Tim clenched his fists. He had to find her. He had to. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the night. Not just Lily's innocent giggle, but something raw and filled with dread. It echoed from inside the funhouse, its mirrors gleaming like hungry eyes. Every rational thought slipped away as he dashed toward the entrance, heart hammering louder than the nearby carousel's eerie music. The door creaked ominously as he pushed through, stepping into a world of warped reflections and shadowy corners. The walls seemed to twist and breathe, exposing flashes of distorted images of his own face, twisted in horror. Each step resonated with a sense of impending doom, as if the very air conspired to conceal his daughter from him. "Lily?" he called, his voice trembling. The walls replied with echoes, stretching and curling his words until they faded like smoke into the dark. Then he heard it, the faintest giggle again, but now tinged with anguish instead of joy. It sliced through his heart, sending shivers down his spine. He followed the sound deeper into the labyrinth of the funhouse, knowing something unspeakable awaited him ahead. The mirrors fractured reality, causing him to stumble over his own reflection, each image mocking his growing dread. With every corner he rounded, the laughter morphed, a haunting mockery that seemed to lead him to another choice, another sacrifice. Suddenly, one mirror reflected not just him but Lily. She stood behind the shimmering glass, eyes wide with a terror he couldn't comprehend. He felt a pull, an almost magnetic force urging him to reach out. "Daddy," she whimpered. Tim slammed his hands against the cold surface, panic boiling within him. "Lily, I'm here. I'll get you out." But the moment he touched the mirror, an electric shock coursed through him, sending him sprawling back. The laughter escalated, wrapping around him tightly, suffocating. The room darkened, the laughter turning sinister, a cacophony of tortured souls desperate for release. Time twisted, dragging him into the horror surrounding them. He was captured in a nightmarish loop, a dance of fear as he wrestled for control. He felt the presence of something ancient and horrifying lurking behind him, a weight that threatened to crush him entirely. "Lily!" he shouted again, feeling a creeping chill crawl up his spine. But this time, something answered, a whisper, cold and sweet. "You must choose." The words echoed, chilling his blood. A choice, he thought. What could he possibly sacrifice to save her? As shadows closed in, he steeled himself for the dreadful decision that awaited. What price would he pay in exchange for his daughter's safety? Was he ready to unveil the true horror of Whispering Pines? The park waited, hungry for answers as the darkness thickened around him. The laughter faded, swallowed by a growing silence that felt heavier than the darkness itself. Tim struggled to his feet, heart pounding, adrenaline stabbing through him. The momentary shock was wearing off, replaced with a fierce determination. He had to find Lily. He needed to know if she was safe. "Lily," he called again, voice trembling with urgency. The mirrors responded, rippling with echoes that twisted his words. Each new reflection showed him something different. Twisted scenes of children playing, ghostly figures lurking just beyond the edges of reality. He took a deep breath, forcing himself forward. The funhouse felt alive, shifting, breathing, pulsating with dread. The walls seemed to close in as he walked, like invisible hands wrapping around his throat, tightening with every step. Tim turned a corner and stumbled into a room filled with endless mirrors. Each one reflected his face, contorted with panic. He felt them watching him. Was this a game? Were the trapped souls playing with him? Suddenly, the mirrors shimmered, and he caught a glimpse of her once more. Lily stood behind a reflection, her eyes wide but glistening with unnatural light. "Daddy!" she cried, reaching out. "Hang on. I'm coming!" Tim shouted, lunging toward her image. But the barrier of glass thwarted him again, pushing him back with a searing jolt. "No!" he gasped, clenching his teeth. He could hear her faint whimper now, the sweet chill of despair weaving into the laughter that echoed in the distance. He was losing her. A voice, soft and sultry, whispered through the air, wrapping around him like a shroud. "You could save her. Just give in." Tim whirled around, panic surging. Shadows flickered near the edges of the room, dancing just out of sight. The voice was seductive, promising ease and comfort. But he felt the darkness pressing in, each shadow a reminder of the chilling tales he had heard about this place. The price for safety was never simple. "Who are you?" he shouted into the void, demanding. "What do I have to do?" Nothing answered but a cold gust of wind that swept through the funhouse, sending chills down his spine. Then came another echoing laugh, one that cut through him like ice. "You must choose." The words wrapped around him, crawling under his skin. "What do you love most? What are you willing to sacrifice?" The mirrors swirled with images of Lily. Her first bicycle ride, her laughter on a sunny day, the colors that brightened her innocent world. "Enough!" Tim cried out, fists clenched. He couldn't let fear dictate his response. But as the shadows spoke again, entwining his deepest fears and doubts, he felt himself slipping. Sacrifice your freedom or lose her forever, and then he saw it. A trapdoor hidden beneath the twisted floor, its outline barely visible. His heart raced. What lay below? The whispers coiled around him enticingly, luring him toward it. If it was the key, he couldn't turn away. Tim started toward the door, drawn by a maelstrom of dread and hope. What awaited him he didn't know. The choice loomed heavy, pressing down on him like a mountain. With one last glance at the mirror holding Lily's terrified face, he reached for the door and opened it wide. A dark stairway spiraled down into the unknown. "Daddy!" Her voice rang out, more urgent now. Panic turned to desperation. "Hold on, Lily. I'm coming." Without hesitating, he stepped inside. The darkness enveloped him, pulling him deeper like a nightmarish embrace. But then, an unseen force slammed the door behind him, sealing him away from the light. He was trapped, and suddenly, he wasn't sure who or what was waiting for him in the depths of Whispering Pines. And that when he heard it, a low, rumbling growl, echoing off the damp walls. What lived in the darkness below? What horror awaited him? And would Lily still be waiting on the other side? The true terror of the night had barely begun. Tim stumbled down the staircase, each step like a heartbeat drumming in the hollow silence. The damp air clung to him, heavy and chilling. He could hear the faint growl growing louder, crawling under his skin. It was hungry. It was waiting. "Lily!" he shouted again, each call echoing back, mockingly taunting him with silence. Was she down here? Would he find her trapped in the dark? Alone? Fear clawed at his insides. Panic was an unwelcome companion. The stairs seemed endless, twisting endlessly into the bowels of the earth. With every turn, his heart raced, threatening to drown him in a tide of dread. Shadows flickered like whispers against the walls, and fleeting shapes danced at the edge of his vision, just out of reach, just beyond comprehension. He reached the bottom and found himself in a large cavern, the air stale and thick with moisture. A dull light flickered from the far side, revealing damp stones that shone like twisted jewels in the dark. But it was not just the walls that shone, it was the eyes. Tim froze, bone-deep terror rooting him to the spot. In the shadows, Dozens of pairs of eyes reflected the dim light, each set glinting with a malevolent hunger. They watched him, waiting, calculating. "Daddy!" The timid call pierced through the gnawing panic in his chest. It was Lily. She was here, just beyond the shadows. He knew it. He felt it in his bones. "Lily, where are you?" he called, voice cracking on the edges. The murmurs of the creatures echoed back instead of her voice, a chorus of wheezing breaths and wet, slithering sounds. Tim pressed forward, hands trembling at his sides, adrenaline spiking through him again. The light flickered on, revealing not just the stones, but small figures hunched in the darkness. They were children, pale, gaunt, shivering like leaves in a storm, their hair ragged and eyes sunken deep into their sockets. "What have you done?" A child's voice rasped, a stark contrast to the innocence of youth. "Why did you come here?" "I'm trying to find my daughter." He felt the knot of fear tighten. "Have you seen her?" The child cackled, the laughter echoing in a cruel ripple. "You shouldn't have come. Not to our home." She's drawn to the thrill of the dark. Panic surged again, crashing through him like a tidal wave. "What do you mean? Where is she?" No one answered, but the growling returned, a low rumble vibrating through the floor, making dust swirl around his feet like a whirlwind. The children shrank back into the gloom, their laughter turning to whimpers intertwined with dark, twisted words. "Give us what we want and you can have her back." "What do you want?" Your heart, a chorus of whispers echoed, chilling his blood. That I end that moment. He understood. The place fed on fear, on desperation, and on sacrifice. It made worlds of light into shadows, heartbeats into echoes of pain. "Leave her alone," he shouted, stepping forward, fists balled. But the horde of eyes began to advance, feet shuffling closer to him, hungry for his anguish. Lily's voice pressed through again, faint, almost a whisper. "Daddy, please, hold on, Lily. I'm coming." He ran toward the sound, towards what he hoped was her safety, but there was no escape from the wall of children that blocked his path, each young face reflecting the nightmares embedded in their souls. As he shoved through them, he felt icy hands grip his arms, clawing at his skin. Desperation surged through him like venom. "Tim," a voice crooned, softer now, laced with promises. "Join us. Make the sacrifice. She'll be yours." And that was when the shadows pooled around him, pressing down like iron chains. He could feel the darkness suffocating, pulling at him, wrapping around him as if the very air was a living thing. Tim gasped for breath, heart racing as he wrestled with the decision. His pulse was in his ears, drowning out Lily's cries. What should he sacrifice? His mind raced as the light dimmed, his resolve wavering against the sinister whisperings. Would he give in, fold under the pressure, or push through this cursed darkness to save his daughter? And then he saw it, one child, stepping ahead of the rest, a smirk twisting its pale lips. This little one had something in its hands. The realization hit him hard. What did it hold? He had no choice but to find out. What secret was hidden in the hands of darkness? And would it lead him to Lily or seal her fate forever? The child's fingers curled around a small, twisted object, the dim light barely catching its surface. The grotesque shape was familiar. Tim's breath caught in his throat as he recognized it, an old, forgotten toy. One Lily used to cherish. A frayed stuffed bear with button eyes that seemed to glimmer with dreadful knowledge. "It's Lily's," he shouted, staggering back as if slapped. "Where is she? What did you do to her?" His voice cracked, adrenaline surging like fire through his limbs. "Not what we did," the child replied, its smile widening, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. "But what she did. She came to play." The hint of glee echoed, a sound that tasted of betrayal. "Play?" Tim shouted, the anger bubbling hot against the chill seeping into his bones. "This isn't a game." The shadows swirled closer, and the children began to chant in low, rhythmic murmurs. The darkness shifted around Tim, tightening like a noose. Each heartbeat felt louder, a drum in the silence that fractured into 1,000 echoes. "She chose us," they intoned, their voices rising in eerie harmony. In the shadows, Her laughter danced. To be one of us. Forever. Panic crashed like waves, and doubt gnawed at Tim's mind. Could Lily really have wanted this? Had she been drawn to the darkness, seduced by its sinister whispers? A shudder ran through him, a fear that suffocated reason. Lily, no. He screamed, the words escaping in ragged gasps, chasing after echoes of her voice. I won't let you take her. With a surge of determination, he lunged towards the child holding the toy. As he reached out, the figures surrounding him closed in tighter, a whirlwind of skeletal limbs and hollow laughter. They pressed against him like the weight of his nightmares, desperation boiling as he fought against their grasp. Join us, they cried, a terrifying chorus urging him towards the dark embrace. Become one with the shadows. Sacrifice your heart. What heart? The words slipped past his lips, bitter and raw. Would they truly extinguish him, leaving behind only the memory of a father's love? Suddenly, a flicker of light caught his eye, a fleeting glimmer just beyond the mass of children. A familiar voice broke through the chaos, soft and trembling. Daddy, Lily. It was unmistakable. He felt her presence, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. He had to get to her. With a primal scream, he pushed forward, shoving through the throng of twisted bodies clutching at him like vines. Fear raged within him, intertwining with the fierce love for his daughter. He had come too far to turn back now. But the fierce whispers grew louder, claws raking against his back, pulling him down into the abyss. They wanted him. They craved his despair. Join us, the children howled, their voices rising in a crescendo that shook the very air. Tim stumbled, breathless, searching the growing darkness for any sign of Lily, fighting through waves of lost souls. His heart raced, his pulse thundered, and just when he thought he might lose everything, a gap opened in the sea of pale faces. There she was. Lily stood at the back of the cave, the light around her glowing like warmth in the frigid darkness. She looked so small but stable, with her wide eyes staring back at him, a fragile shield against the chaos unfolding around them. Time seemed to freeze as he took tentative steps towards her, every instinct screaming for him to hurry. Lily, I'm here. We can leave together. The darkness quivered, a wave of panic crashing over him as he sensed the children's hunger growing. They could feel the bond between them, and their chanting intensified, the air thick with dread. Leave her alone, Tim roared, lunging forward. The shadows writhed and shrieked, clawing at his arms and legs. He could feel their breath on his neck, the chill of their whispers curling around him like a shroud. But in that moment, the flickering light around Lily brightened, the once muted glow now blinding. Tim squinted against it, heart racing. What was happening? As the darkness recoiled from the light, he plowed forward, risking everything. The light felt alive, a pulse matching his own. Would it lead him to safety, or was it another trap? He reached out, his hand trembling, the distance between them closing in rapid, desperate strides. But as he drew closer, he could see something shifting behind Lily, a shadow, dark and distorted, lurking just beyond her fragile figure. What do you think you'll do? Came the voice, smooth and haunting, breaking through the light like a crack in glass. You're too late. The true sacrifice hasn't been made. Tim stopped, heart pounding, dread swelling within him like a storm. What kind of darkness had he awakened? And could he pull Lily from its grasp before it was too late? Time hung in the balance, and the final confrontation loomed on the horizon. The shadow behind Lily rippled, a dark mass pulsating with malevolence, twisting its form as if it were alive. The air thickened, saturated with an acrid scent and the whisper of impending doom. Tim's heart raced, battering against his ribs like a trapped animal. Lily, come to me, he shouted again, desperate to reach her, to break whatever hold this creature had over her. The shadows twisted further, splitting the air with piercing shrieks that echoed through the cave like a siren's call. Daddy! Her voice trembled, yet it was laced with a strange sweetness that felt wrong. I want to stay. It's fun here. Tim felt the ground shift beneath him, emotions warring inside. The frantic love for his daughter battled against a creeping suspicion. Fun? Here? It was a devil's playground. No, he yelled, clenching his fists. You don't understand. This is a trick. The laughter of the children surrounded him, mocking, echoing. Their voices layered like a grotesque symphony, enchanting yet repulsive. The dark mass shifted closer, with the sinister voice wrapping around him. You think you can reclaim her? She chose us. You're all too late. An icy dread latched onto Tim's spine, gnawing at his resolve. Eyes darting to the children who still chanted. He noticed the way their gaunt faces glimmered under the flickering light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, nourishing their hunger. Listen to me, Lily. His voice cracked, desperation fueling the fight within him. You're not one of them. Whatever they promised you, it's all a lie. In that moment, Lily's face twisted, a flicker of confusion crossing her features, before she turned away slowly. The darkness thrived, coaxing her with tendrils of shadow grazing her cheeks. No, no, no. Tim's heart sank as he grasped at the frayed threads of her presence. The longer she remained, the more he felt her slipping away. The shadows closed in, creeping ever closer with promises of eternal joy. Euphoria nestled in gloom. What do you want? Tim asked, feeling the tremor in his voice. A challenge. He wouldn't back down now. What sacrifice are you speaking of? The shadows erupted in raucous laughter. Her glow sustains us. It is her purity that you must relinquish. Only then can you have her back. Never. He charged forward, propelled by fury and fear. There was no hesitation. This was a fight for her life. But every step felt heavy, resistance pulling at him like quicksand. The cold-gripped shadows twined around his legs, dragging him down. Join us, they hissed, a cacophony of pleas and taunts, echoing in his ears. Free her heart. Embrace what you fear. His breath came sharp, panic clawing at his throat. He felt a cold sweat bead across his brow. In the depths of his mind, the question loomed. Could he face the darkness within himself? Tim stumbled, fighting through the waves of children, their eyes glistening like black marbles, waiting to drown him in despair. Lily! He screamed again, his voice a thread through the tempest, fraying at the edges. Then he saw it, a flicker of light behind her, bright yet wild, drawing on something deep and sinister. It felt powerful but dangerous all the same. Daddy! Her voice was so small now, as if she were lost beneath layers of shadow and laughter. He reached out, pushing through the darkness, forcing himself forward, feeling their malicious hands clawing at him. I want to leave you. But the closer he got, the more Lily faded, the shadows curling tighter around her frail body as though they were enticing her to abandon him. Sacrifice, they chanted as one, their voices drowning out everything else. As he lunged forward, energy coursing through him, lightning struck in a brilliant flash across his vision. Tim's hand reached for Lily, fingertips brushing the warmth he craved, and in that moment, reality stretched beyond belief. The shadows hissed in dismay as if they knew he was onto something. What are you willing to give? Whispered the darkness, sultry and silky, wrapping around his thoughts like vines. Are you prepared to trade your soul? Everything stilled, breath caught in Tim's lungs, heart pounding. Would he dare? Even if it cost me everything? He rasped, realizing that the line between salvation and damnation had already blurred. Suddenly, the shadows loosened their grip, recoiling like they had been stung. A moment of clarity. What would he sacrifice? Tim's resolve fortified, but behind that glimmer was a truth he couldn't yet see. Lily's light flickered, her smile wavered, and then silence enveloped them. What price was he willing to pay to keep her? With the darkness swirling around him, the answer lingered as a haunting breath against his ear, waiting for him to step into the abyss. Could the love of a father conquer this shrouded evil, or would they remain trapped forever in its unyielding embrace? Tim's breath was ragged, a wild horse galloping through his chest as he stared at the flickering light that danced behind Lily. It was a beacon, a promise, yet it shimmered in a way that felt treacherous, like a mirage in the desert promising water. Shadows writhed around him, tightening their grip, but he forced himself forward, pushing through the eerie chorus of taunts and laughter. "Daddy, it's so nice here." Lily's voice was achingly sweet, but there was an edge that cut through him, a silver knife slicing the air. He could see her now, her frail body swaying lightly, as if caught in a lullaby only the darkness could sing. "No." He called her name again, desperation lacing his words. "This isn't right. You can come back to me." Before his eyes, Lily's figure morphed, momentarily flickering like a faulty bulb. In that brief moment of clarity, he saw the child he had fought so hard to protect, lost within layers of shadow and deceit. It ignited a fire inside him. "Fight, Lily!" he screamed, each word a desperate prayer. The shadows recoiled, hissing their displeasure, but Tim put one foot in front of the other, resolute. But the darkness lashed out, rearing like a serpent. Tendrils snaked around his arms and legs like chains, yanking him backward with a force that felt monstrous. His heart hammered, panic surged like ice rushing through his veins. "Let her go," he roared, every syllable dripping with righteous fury. Each cry pushed against the dark mass, igniting flickers of light deep within Tim, a hidden strength he didn't know he possessed. The shadows shrieked in a cacophony of rage, swirling in chaotic patterns, darting about with sinister intent. "Sacrifice," they screamed again, more furious now, voices intermingling like a storm. "Her light for your soul. Join us. Free her heart." Tim felt the weight of their insistence, an almost seductive whisper that burrowed into his mind. Sweat dripped down his brow as he shook his head violently. "No, you don't understand. I want to lose her." As if responding to his conviction, the darkness momentarily flickered, revealing flashes of nightmares, the visions of what would happen should he fail to save her. The shadows showed children trapped forever, their laughter transformed into cries of despair. "Daddy!" Lily's plea sliced through the horror, shattering his wavering focus. Tim lunged once more, summoning every ounce of energy left within him. He felt the dark tendrils tear into his skin, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Each drop of blood that cascaded down his arms only fueled his resolve. In a surreal moment, time twisted around them, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The air shimmered. The whispers grew louder, filling his head with chaos. "Trade your soul, embrace the darkness," and then, as he was almost upon her, he felt it, something pulled at the very essence of his being. "I can't," he screamed at the void, his world shrinking to just him and Lily. "I want tea." Then he saw it. Lily was no longer just a shadowed figure. She held a spark of radiant light that seemed to react to his turmoil. It flickered and brightened, but it needed him. He reached for her, fingers outstretched, desperate not just to save her, but to ignite the connection they shared. "Lily, take my hand," he bellowed, allowing the fear to crash around him, accepting that perhaps the darkness already had a piece of him. In that instant of desperate hope, the shadows screamed. A thunderous roar filled the cave, shaking the very ground beneath him as Tim touched her hand, his heart echoing their final war cry. The darkness trembled. "What are you doing?" it hissed with contempt, recoiling once more. Tim felt a jolt of heat surge through him, electrifying and terrifying. "I'm taking her back." He gripped her hand tighter, feeling Lily's light pulse against his palm, a warmth that burned away the icy grasp of despair. Suddenly, everything stilled. The screeching laughter faded, and a deep silence cascaded through the cave, as if the shadows themselves held their breath. "Is this the sacrifice?" In that restrained pause, Tim's eyes widened as he finally understood. There was still time to shift the balance. But as despair tended to do, it seeped in around the edges, cold and dark. The shadows twisted once more, and he sensed the malevolent force preparing to retaliate. The flicker of light binding them seemed to dim, and an unexpected horror struck him. What had he unleashed with his resolve? The shadows were gathering once again, surging toward them with insatiable thirst. Would they let go of Lily? Or had his very act of defiance awakened something far worse? As the mass loomed closer, threatening to consume them both. Tim felt a deep sense of urgency. He had to find out before it was too late. Tim's heart raced, the shadows congealing, tightening their grip like snakes ready to strike. The fluorescent glow from Lily's hand began to flicker, threatening to extinguish into nothingness. "Hold on, Lily," he shouted, his voice shaky but fierce, desperately trying to counter the darkness pressing against them as the shadows surged. They whispered promises of power and freedom, their sickly tendrils curling around him. "Let it go, Tim. You could have it all." The voices twisted and turned like a haunting wind, a cacophony of dread wrapped in sweet temptation. Angela would be proud of him. They would never go hungry again. "I'll never abandon her." With a primal roar, he pulled Lily closer, feeling their connection straining against the encroaching night. Inside him, doubt tugged at the edges, offering an easier path. Just trust them. But he remembered all the years of fighting, all the nights spent searching for her in the dark. The flickering light was so close, inviting him to take that leap. Suddenly, the air around them grew thick, heavy like wet cloth. A low rumble echoed through the cave, a growl that vibrated through his bones. Tim stumbled but steadied himself against the abyss. "You won, take her," he cried. The ground trembled. Shadows swirled like a cyclone, a vortex gaining strength as Tim held on against the tide. "Sacrifice," they hissed, shrieking in frustration. "Is life so valuable? You would trade your very soul for a fleeting moment?" Sweat dripped down his brow, cold and clammy. He never felt so vulnerable. "Lily, stay with me. We'll find a way." The shadows paused, momentarily faltering at the raw desperation in his voice. In that silence, he saw fear cross Lily's face, a mirror of his own. Then, like flames igniting, the warmth within Lily's grasp flared brighter. "Daddy," she gasped, the hope in her voice cutting through the darkness like a hot blade. There was power in her light, a resistance against the consuming blackness. Tim felt it deep within, resonating, a bond forged through love and desperate hope. "I can't lose you." As Tim fought with every fiber of his being, the darkness started to recoil, the laughter transforming into howls of rage. The shadows seemed to realize they were losing their grip. With a deep breath, Tim summoned every ounce of strength, pushing back against the swirling mass that threatened to consume them both. The darkness coiled harder, latching onto Tim's limbs, each tendril a reminder of what he might have to sacrifice. "This is your last chance," it warned, a force that chilled him to the bone. "Join us and save your daughter. Embrace the darkness. It can provide." Tim's muscles trembled under the crushing weight of their words. They tried to flood his mind with thoughts of despair, but everything blurred except for Lily's light. He would never submit. Not now. Not ever. "I want to join you," he shouted defiantly, his voice slicing through the chaos. "I'll fight you to the end." Their screams intensified, a sound of unearthly fury, vibrating the cave walls as if the world itself was unraveling. The air crackled as the shadows fell back, desperate and visceral, feeding on his emotions, his fears. Then, in that twisted moment, the ground beneath them began to shift. Cracks raced across the stone floor like a spider's web, and Tim felt the impending collapse surge through the air. "What's happening?" he cried. The light in Lily's grasp flickered, weak behind the fury surrounding them. "Together, Daddy," she urged, lifting her chin defiantly. "Fight." Tim clutched her tighter as the cave around them trembled, shadows swirling with raw desperation. If the walls fell, would they be lost forever? He couldn't let that happen. The echoes of the shadows jeering grew distant, battling against the light. But with every second that passed, the shadows slashed back, the ground beneath them threatening to swallow them whole. In the midst of all this, Tim could almost hear a faint whisper, a promise lingering just beyond his grasp. "What will you sacrifice?" It echoed ominously, wrapping around them like a fog as the final tendrils of darkness lunged with deadly intent. Tim felt Lily's hand slip from his grasp for just a heartbeat. Was this the moment he feared? Would he lose her forever? The ground cracked wider, the trove of shadows above hissing in delight. Daddy, I'm slipping now in this final heartbeat, both of them teetering on the edge. Tim's mind reeled. What was the price for love? With that question hanging heavy in the air, silence enveloped them then. An earth-shattering roar erupted as the shadows lunged once more, a torrent of dark desire, leaving Tim gasping for what would come next. Tim's heart pounded in his chest, loud enough to drown out the howls of the shadows. Time stretched, every second feeling like an eternity as he fought against the inexorable pull of the abyss. The ground cracked more ominously, sending pebbles skittering into the dark void. With a surge of desperation, he yanked Lily back, their fingers brushing just barely hanging on. "Don't let go," he screamed, his throat raw. The shadows writhed and shrieked, the air crackling with a malevolence that seeped into Tim's bones. "You've already lost once, you can't hold her. Just let the darkness cradle her." The whispers morphed into a cacophony of torment, echoing deep within his skull. "No, I won't let you win." For a moment the energy shifted. Lily's light brightened, casting out the shadows threatening to suffocate them. Tim felt it flare inside him, a flicker of rebellion against despair. His gaze locked onto his daughter's frightened expression, and he felt his resolve solidify. Together, Lily. With renewed strength, he shifted his weight, anchoring himself against the rock face, struggling to defy the chaos. Yet, the darkness seized Tim's legs like ice, rooting him to the spot. He gritted his teeth, his heart racing faster than before. The shadows were trying to drown him in a sea of fear, whispering sweet calamities of surrender and ease. "Snt death a release?" crooned. "What's a little sacrifice?" Lily's light flickered violently as it fought against the shadows, but Tim could see its glow dim, almost snuffed out. He gasped, the reality setting in. "Lily, no." Then, in a flash of terrifying clarity, it hit him he could not let fear dictate their fate. He would rather face the abyss than let it consume her whole. Drawing in a breath, Tim let all his love flood into that moment. "I choose you." As if answering his fierce declaration, the shadows shrieked louder, a symphony of agony that pierced through the air. Tim concentrated on Lily's luminescence, feeling their bond tighten, almost palpable. With every ounce of willpower, he tore at the shadows clinging to him. "I will not be your vessel." With a scream that shattered the darkness, he yanked his feet free, lunging toward his daughter. The shadows hissed, clawing at his arms, but he was a shield against their disdain. "Hold on tight." Lily gripped his hand, a surge of energy flowing between them, their combined light pushing back against the biting darkness. Just as they neared the edge of the crumbling stone platform, the ground let out a final, thunderous rumble, a warning of imminent collapse. But Tim didn't falter. He stepped forward, forcing himself through the dark that sought to swallow them both. Every ounce of hope crystallized into a singular thought: escape was their only option as they soared forward. A wrenching force pulled at Tim, shadows grasping, gnashing their teeth. "This isn't over." They howled, their fury unraveling the last threads of sanity around them. With a surge of adrenaline, he felt the world tilt. Suddenly there was bright light. The darkness receded, no longer creeping up his back like icy fingers. Yet, it was in that suspended moment, when everything seemed to hold its breath, that Tim realized he was standing on solid ground. But the shadows screamed, echoing louder than before. Time seemed to unravel. Ahead of them lay a forest of unfamiliar trees, warped and gnarled, shadows still dancing between the trunks. "Where are we?" Tim breathed, scanning their surroundings, dread coiling tight in his belly. The forest felt alive, pulsating with a scent of decay. The shadows were left behind, for now, but the whispers still hung in the air like a cold wind. Something lurked behind the trees, waiting. Tim squeezed Lily's hand, trying to steady his racing heart. "We need to keep moving." But as they took a hesitant step into the forest, a shiver ran down his spine. Was this a sanctuary or a deeper trap? One thing was certain: the shadows were not done yet. They would find them again. The chilling realization crept in: what else would they have to sacrifice to survive? Each step closer to the darkness drew them deeper into uncertainty. Tim's mind raced as he drew deeper into the twisted forest. Each step felt heavier, shadows flittering just out of sight. The forest hummed with an eerie energy, alive beneath the gnarled roots and rustling leaves. Lily clutched his hand tightly, her small fingers trembling in his grasp. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice like a fragile thread, pulling at his heart. He turned to her, determination flooding his chest. "I know, sweetheart, but we're together. We'll find a way out. Promise." As they pressed forward, the air thickened with a palpable darkness. It felt as if they were being watched, every rustle and snap of branches sending icy fingers down his spine. He focused on the warmth of Lily's hand as if it could shield them from whatever horror loomed nearby. Then, the whispers began again, floating through the trees, curling around them with malicious intent. "You can't escape. You've already made your choice." Tim felt rage ignite within him. "No," he shouted into the abyss, echoing back his defiance. "We're not trapped. You don't have hold of us." The air crackled, shadows retreating momentarily in surprise. Lily squeezed his hand harder. "Daddy, what are they talking about?" Before he could respond, a horrific roar split the air, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. The trees shuddered, and a monstrous figure emerged from the depths of the forest. Its eyes glowed with a cold, hungry light, teeth sharp and dripping with malice. "Foolish parents," it growled, voice like thunder. "You think you can simply walk away? You have awakened the pact. Your sacrifice belongs to us." Tim's chest tightened as the creature lunged forward. Instinct overtook fear, and he wrapped his arms around Lily, moving backward with every ounce of strength. "They couldn't back down now. We can't leave without fighting," he roared, his voice rising above the oppressive darkness. "Fight?" the beast mocked, slashing its claws through the air. "What can mere humans hope to do against the ancient? You won't escape the pact so easily." Tim felt Lily shaking beside him. Here was where they would finally break free. "I will do whatever it takes," he cried out, defiance burning bright in his heart. "You can't have her. She's my daughter." In that moment, a radiant light ignited from their clasped hands. It surged through the air like a beacon, illuminating the dense woodland. The monster shrieked, recoiling from the brilliance. Tim met Lily's terrified gaze. "You have to trust me. We can do this together. Just focus on the light." With a nod, she squeezed his hand tighter, and together, they drew upon their shared love, summoning the brightest of hopes, every precious moment etched in their hearts. "You don't own us," Tim shouted as they focused their combined energy, radiating warmth that pushed back against the inky darkness. The shadows writhed in agony, the creature howling, hands clawing desperately at the light. "You may lose everything," it bellowed, spitting with anger. "No." Tim felt the rush of memories coursing through him, the laughter, the warmth of summer days, the joy in Lily's eyes every time he told her a story. "You won't take her from me. Love can conquer all." The light brightened, pushing back the darkness, forcing the creature to cower in fear. With one final push of their power, Tim and Lily thrust their hands forward. Brilliant rays burst forth, engulfing the forest in a golden glow. "Get back," they yelled in unison, and the forest shook as the light lashed out, consuming the shadows in a swirling vortex of purity. With a final, guttural roar, the creature disintegrated into a mist that dissipated into the air. The darkness unraveled, the forest shimmering in light and warmth for the first time in ages. Tim fell to his knees, heart racing, as the last remnants of shadow disappeared. He looked up at Lily, her eyes sparkling, free from fear. "We did it, Daddy," she cheered, her laughter ringing out, a sweet melody above the silence. It was a sound he would always cherish, a sound that drowned out the havoc of the past. Taking a deep breath, Tim realized they were no longer bound by the pact. They were free. As dawn broke through the treetops, hues of orange and pink painting the sky, they emerged from the forest, knowing they'd forged a bond stronger than darkness, one that would carry them through anything. "Let us go home," he whispered, holding Lily close. As they walked away from the haunted past, the weight on his chest lifted. The air felt lighter, filled with promise and a future unmarred by shadows. Together, they stepped into the light, leaving Whispering Pines behind for good. And with that final act of defiance, Tim knew no darkness would hold them captive ever again. To all of you still here, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will grip your heart. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find this tale of hope. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense conclusion. Let us keep the conversation going. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel, and we appreciate every bit of love you give.